Okay, so we'll kind of wrap up this whole like labeling theory a little bit, and we'll go over a few things. So when we think about like the label part, um, there's a few things that to keep in mind, right? One is that it's hard to define a label, right? We know it when we see it, but but it becomes difficult to actually put it into practice, right? Because we don't really know exactly what it is or something like that. The other part too is that this is very much like a process that's put into place, right? Where we have people who issue a label. This is then internalized by a person. And it also creates a problem with then this leads to like a deviant outcome or more deviance. So when we have this kind of processional part, right, there's a lot of pieces in because one, we start getting into like if we're issuing a label, like, who or what gives the best labels, and who gets to decide that, and which, and at the same time, if it's internalized, which ones are going to be, bad or harmful. And, what is the actual process of believing or internalizing that? So there's questions about, fulfilling that script of like what to expect and so on. And also, why, if this is it, like, why do some people offend if they have it? And what makes someone not offend? So, the reason what I'm getting at here is that because there's this like layer of complexity that's going on, it does make it, from a precision and in terms of like the actual process and so on, becomes very difficult to do, right? It's also difficult to test this because how and what and after what time, why do some people, and if people offend, is it really something that because they've been negatively labeled or because they're defiant? How do we get people to, mitigate this, right? I guess, really the big major takeaway, right, is that, we can't necessarily test people by giving them negative labels, right? So, we have no control over that because if a label is actually harmful, then, it constitutes like really bad to actually do that to someone. So we kind of have to always look for, so we have no control from that from an experimental standpoint. Um, we also are not sure about the outcome, right? Because if we have, like a crime outcome, or, if we're looking for other kind of, deviance, maybe that's like a drug and alcohol, substance abuse, or something like that, right? So, it creates, this like kind of bag of what does or does not count. So, testing and getting evidence then becomes pretty difficult at this point. I mean, this could be like kind of fun, right? So let's assume that we can test it, though, which is something we can do. We can test it, even though it does like that. But think about like how would we test something like this? A lot of times, this kind of thing is difficult, right? But if we did this from a survey perspective, what would we look for and how do we do it? So this could be like a good kind of like wrap up thing to do for this is like think about the different ways that we're labeled. How do we, interpret people are labeled and that they've internalized it, and then that this then leads to like a deviance amplification kind of thing. So that was a quick little one just to sort of like wrap up the whole labeling theory thing. Hopefully useful, and if not, if it's not useful, well, I'm sorry. I'll try better next time. But anyway, thank you again for your patience this week. And